So we left off at the XYZ affair. So it's called brinkmanship, and you'll kind of relate this to the Cold War, is that during the XYZ affair, we're on the brink of war with France. And brinkmanship, I'll spell it out for you, just means that the U.S. is constantly on the threat, on the edge of war. And basically what ends up happening is the U.S. calms down, Adams gets us to calm down, and we don't go to war with France. But we become very nativist, we become very anti-French. The political cartoon here is making fun of America, the feathers in the hats, and it's just saying that America is weak and that, like we're to be humiliated. So if you see that, it's XYZ affair. The Alien and Sedition Acts is another humiliation that Adams is going to have during his presidency. He's a Federalist, so he believes in a strong central government. Adams is kind of sensitive. He does not like all the criticism that he's getting because of the XYZ affair and because of other decisions that he's making. So he's going to make it illegal to speak out against the government. So the Alien and Sedition Acts are going to be passed. The Sedition Act says you cannot speak out against the government. And Adams is a Federalist. He's the President of the United States, so you can't speak out against him. So anything that is anti-Adams is no longer allowed to be said or published. And then the Alien Act is going to increase the number of years it takes to become a U.S. citizen. The reason why he's doing this is the immigrants, who are called aliens because they're foreign to your country, they are going to go ahead and join the Democrat-Republican Party, and that's Adams' opposition party. So he doesn't like them, and so he's going to go ahead and increase the number of years it takes to be a U.S. citizen. That means they can't vote. Okay. Then all the newspapers are actually owned by Democrat Republicans, and the media has the freedom of press thanks to the First Amendment. And so what's going to end up happening is he's going to limit that with the Sedition Act. So if a newspaper editorial says that they don't like Adams and they're really kind of lambasting, they're really arguing harshly against Adams, what's going to end up happening is they get arrested because it's sedition. What ends up happening thanks to this is Adam is going to become really, really unpopular with a lot of people. I mean, he limits your First Amendment, your freedom of speech rights, and then he makes it harder to become a U.S. citizen. But he's doing this to stop opposition. He is trying to stop opposition to his government, his Federalist government. So as a response, the Democrat-Republicans write the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. In the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions, Virginia, a southern state, and Kentucky, a western state, are going to say that they have the right to nullify any federal law that they don't like. Nullify, this fancy word, all it means is void, strike out, cancel. So they can cancel any law that they don't like that was created by the federal government. If you think about it today, there's 50 states in the United States, and that means each of these states would be able to tell the president and the United States government what they are going to do and what they're not going to do. So if the government passes a new tax, then these states could say, screw it, we're not going to pay it, and they would nullify it, void it. It would cause anarchy in the country. And so the Alien and Sedition Acts are going to be ruled unconstitutional in this Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. And basically what it's saying is that these states don't have to follow it if they don't want to, because they have states' rights, and that states' rights are more important than federal law. Remember, they're going back to the 10th Amendment, and the 10th Amendment says anything that's not specifically granted to the federal government goes to the states. So the XYZ affair has damaged Adams' reputation. You have the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions, which is basically two states telling the President of the United States that he can kiss their butt. You have the Alien and Sedition Acts. I mean, like, this guy has huge mess up after mess up after mess up. He's becoming more and more unpopular, and the election year is coming up. So in the election of 1800, sometimes we call it the Revolution of 1800. In this election, you're going to have the incumbent, that's President John Adams. He's going to run for re-election, and he's going to lose. He will lose to Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, the Democrat-Republican who was Adams' VP, has been campaigning really since 1796 to be the president. And so Thomas Jefferson is going to have a tie with this other guy called Aaron Burr. And Aaron Burr and Jefferson tie. Alexander Hamilton, a Federalist, is going to go to all his Federalist friends, and he's like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe this is happening. You've got Satan 1 and Satan 2, because he hates Jefferson and he definitely hates Burr. And so Alexander Hamilton is stuck between a rock and a hard place. He doesn't know who he actually wants to be the next president of the United States. So he looks at these two guys and he's like, well, you know, Jefferson's the lesser of the two evils. So Federalists, I need you to vote for Jefferson. And so they do. Whenever there's a tie in the presidency, remember the House of Representatives will determine who our next president of the United States is going to be. And so they choose President Jefferson. So he gets to become the new president. Burr, now, because he's the first loser, he's going to be Jefferson's vice president. And so Jefferson's the president, Burr is going to be the vice president. And we're going to fix this now with the 12th Amendment in 1804. So the 12th Amendment that says when you cast a vote for the president, you also cast a vote for their running mate, the vice president, will be enacted, it will be ratified, it will be approved, it will be added to the end of the Bill of Rights, that end of the Constitution. That's what you keep adding, okay? So what this revolution of 1800 kind of looks like is that Adams, who is a Federalist, is going to transition power to the Democrat-Republican Jefferson. So you have one political party transitioning power to the other, and it goes smooth for the most part. I mean, there's no huge revolutions in the streets. People aren't burning buildings down. Dogs and cats aren't living together peacefully. Like, everything is just fine. And so, Adams is a sore loser, but pretty much everything's okay. Alexander Hamilton's going to fight a duel, which is basically where two people shoot at each other, with Aaron Burr, and he's going to die in the duel. And that shows you how much he hates Burr, is that these two are actually willing to shoot at each other. In the election of 1800, you can kind of see how the electoral votes work. Look again, the Democrat-Republicans are pretty much voting in the southern area because it is a southern western political party. The Federalists, you can see a little bit of North Carolina is actually a Federalist. The Federalists are pretty much going to actually vote for Adams, and they're in the New England states again. Now, Washington is right here, you know, where Maryland and Virginia is. Okay, they don't have a vote. But when you look at New York, they have 12 votes, and they are they're not really a New England state. New York, and this one has gone kind of towards the Southern Party. New York City was a huge slave import city. This is actually where most of the slave trade occurred, where the slaves were coming in. They're coming in through New York Harbor. So they kind of favored the southern side because the southern side is using slave labor on the agricultural plantations that they have. North Carolina, when you look at it, you see that half of them are Federalists here. Remember the Outer Banks, the sea area of North Carolina, a lot of them are British. You even have, you know, the British like high tide language over there, the hoi toi language. And what it is like, if you go to the Outer Banks, some of them have a British accent instead of the Southern accent like they're supposed to have. Jefferson's the president of the United States now, and he really is promising a revolution. He has told the entire country that he is going to bring the government back to its original meaning. I mean, heck, Jefferson's a founding father. He was there when they were writing all this stuff. He had to know what they were talking about. So Jefferson, as the new president, believes in a laissez-faire government. And laissez-faire, lazy government, is a hands-off approach to the economy. So this invisible hand is going to control the economy, and it can control it good, it can control it bad. It's a hands-off policy. He wants to return the government to a small government. He does not like a big central, all-powerful, all-seeing government. He wants a large state government. He thinks states should have all the rights. So the federal government's not going to interfere with economic issues. He's going to go to more state government control, and he's going to believe in this laissez-faire economics. And he's not going to do any of this stuff. He's actually going to be very involved in the economy. He's going to expand the size of the government in some ways. So the guy's kind of a hypocrite. Adams is really upset because he lost the election of 1800. I mean, it hurts your feelings when you don't win. And so he is going to go ahead and devise a plan to save his beautiful Federalist government. He is afraid that Jefferson is coming in and is going to destroy the government that he has created, that Washington, President Washington, has created. So he's scared out of his mind, and he does what scared people do. He reacts, and he doesn't necessarily react the right way. So the Judiciary Act of 1801, this is Adams' appointment of midnight judges. So Adams has all these positions that are open in the federal court system, and he is going to appoint Federalist Party members as judges. Remember, the President of the United States gets to appoint judges to the federal court system. So he appoints left and right. I mean, there's all kinds of openings, and he appoints everybody he can think of to fill those job slots before Jefferson swears in as the president. Some of these actual judges are signed in at midnight when Adams is technically not the president anymore. And so the problem is not all the judges actually receive the paperwork by the time Adams leaves office. So Adams is out of the office, he's out of the Oval Office, he's out of the White House, and Jefferson comes in and he's like, hey, I'm not delivering these papers. I could care less. I had my guys who I wanted to put into the office. He's got Democrat Republicans he wants to put in. So Jefferson refuses to deliver the paper, and he refuses to actually recognize Adams' appointments. He says it's illegal. Like, this guy didn't have the right to do it. These were my job appointments. I was supposed to have this right to do it. William Marbury, who is one of these midnight judges, he never receives his paperwork, and he sues to get his actual position. He's upset. He says that his position, his job, is property, and the Constitution is supposed to protect your right to property. So we get the famous Marbury versus Madison court decision in 1803. A Supreme Court case, John Marshall, who is a midnight judge, he is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, and he's a Federalist. William Marbury, who is one of these midnight judges, he's upset. You know, you gotta imagine, he told his wife he had a job, and now he's jobless, so she's probably upset. He sues, and he sues Madison because Madison was supposed to deliver the paperwork, and he's not delivering the paperwork. So the Supreme Court case goes, and it establishes judicial review. This fancy word just means that the Supreme Court has the right to review all laws to declare whether they're constitutional or unconstitutional. So they can review all laws that have actually been created to determine whether they are legal or illegal. This is going to actually allow the Supreme Court more power. And it's a part of our checks and balance system. Before, they're just really like a review court. Now they're going to get to review the laws. So you get this appellate part of this system. So they declare part of the Judiciary Act of 1789 unconstitutional. And yes, that is the law that actually created the Supreme Court. They're going to be part of this checks and balance system, and they assert the power of the Supreme Court. The most important part that you remember about Marbury versus Madison is establishes judicial review. If you have a contract for a job and somebody sues, like if somebody actually fires you and you have a contract for a job, you can sue, you can counter sue because that's your property rights. And the Constitution is supposed to protect it. In 1803, Napoleon is controlling France, and he needs some money. He needs money because he's got a war going on with Britain because the French and the British don't get along. So France wants to sell territory in North America. They're wanting to sell it because they need cash. They need fast cash. And so they go ahead and they sell it to the United States. Jefferson is really only wanting to buy the port of New Orleans so he can get access and control of the Mississippi River. Because remember, in Pinckney's Treaty, this area was owned by Spain, but Spain lost it in the Neapolitan War. So they don't have it anymore. France has it. They're in possession of it. And so now we don't have that treaty where we had the right to go up and down the Mississippi, and we don't have the right to the port of New Orleans. So he sends people and he says, let's buy it from you, Napoleon. And what ends up happening is we get all of the Louisiana territory, all of it, it's all ours, and we get it for about $50 million to the United States. That's a steal. Okay. If Jefferson doesn't buy it, it would be a big catastrophe for the United States. So Jefferson decides to go ahead and purchase the Louisiana territory, even though it never says in the Constitution that he has the right, the permission to buy land. Nothing says it explicitly. It does not state it. So Jefferson has to actually borrow a loose interpretation of the Constitution in order to purchase the Louisiana Territory. So he goes against his Democrat Republican beliefs and uses a Federalist belief to do it.